hello, it's me, it's Casey, and today I'm going to be doing a review for Arteza. They were kind enough to send me some more supplies, which is so crazy to me. They sent me their watercolor tube, their tube watercolors, some fine lining paint brushes, and they sent me 2 of their watercolor sketchbooks. I don't know if you could see in the little preview that I was showing of the brushes, but all of the little plastic cases that were on top of the brush completely just fell off, and I also had an issue with one of these getting stuck in the mail, so they had to send me another set of brushes. This completely is not their fault, but I just thought I would mention that. They were kind enough to send me another set pretty quickly. So the next thing that I received was the 60 watercolor paint tubes, and I was super excited about this because I love watercolors. If I'm not doing digital, I love watercolors. I love watercolors more than I love alcohol markers. And the last thing that they sent me is their 64-page watercolor or mixed media premium sketchbook. So let's talk about all of this. So this review is not coming from somebody that knows everything about pigments and, all of that stuff. This is just, I don't know a lot about that kind of stuff, so just say it. If you want to know, like, the pigments that are in this tube or that tube or whatever, I am not the person to be watching. One thing that I do know about these watercolors, though, is that most of them are not translucent, and that's kind of the whole point of watercolors, is that they're translucent and you can layer them or lift them if you need to. Like, that is just the whole thing. In my opinion, why I like watercolors so much is because they're translucent and soft and, pretty. Well, there are only a couple of colors in this set that are actually translucent, and I think almost all of these colors are mixed with white. So that's not an uncommon thing, but it does make the experience not so great, and I will get into that later on in the video. So the first thing that I wanted to do was get all of these watercolors out and swatch them and go ahead and, test everything out, see how everything worked on the paper. I wanted to see what all of the colors looked like because there's 60 colors. I wanted to just visually experience everything, so I did a huge swatch. Like, the first 3 pages of the sketchbook are filled with swatches. So as I was swatching these watercolors, I was like, okay, I like these. These are pretty good. And I was like experiencing with the paper, and at first I was like, whoa, I like this paper a lot. So while I'm swatching and whatnot, I want to talk about the paper. So the sketchbook is they call it a premium watercolor sketchbook, but in reality I think that it's mainly for mixed media. I wouldn't consider this a hardcore watercolor sketchbook. I would definitely consider this more of a mixed media sketchbook because the paper is, I would say it reminds me of the Canson water paper, but not as good. And then they have a textured side to the paper, and then one side is completely smooth, which I personally do not like. So I've only done like 1 smooth page, and it was full of swatches. So as I was swatching everything, I was like, I should swatch my Winsor & Newton watercolors, because that is my all-time favorite watercolor set. I don't care how many people are like, oh, they don't have a complete, like, you can work your way around it. I want to make a complete video about Winsor & Newton watercolor. They're like a little set that they have, but I was swatching my Winsor & Newton watercolors and something really weird happened, and I'm gonna say it is because of the paper, but I'm looking at it right now and it's like so splotchy, and I've never ever seen that with my Winsor & Newton watercolors. It's just very weird. And then I was like, this is really weird, let me swatch them again. So I swatched them again, and I pretty much swatched them at full saturation. I didn't like really dilute the color with water or anything, and that didn't really happen. I like the sketchbook, but if it was all textured instead of smooth and textured, I would enjoy it a lot more, because this is a watercolor sketchbook. But the sketchbook overall is pretty good. There's even a pocket in the back where you can store your like little sketches that you've done, or little stickers or whatevs. As for the warping, or how well it can handle water and stuff like that, it does warp a little bit, and I put a lot of watercolor down whenever I do watercolors, but it did warp a little bit, but not too much. So I'm gonna give a quick review of the watercolor paintbrushes, or of the paintbrushes that were sent. They were like pretty much mini paintbrushes, and in my opinion more like fine liners. I would say that they are really good for small details. I enjoy them, and I think that if you need some paintbrushes for some small details, I've been using them in every single watercolor that I have been painting, so that should tell you how much I like those. I would say 10 out of 10 on the brushes. So now let's move on to the watercolors. So to really test these out, I decided to paint one of my favorite people to draw or paint or sketch or anything, which is Melanie Martinez. And I thought that she would be perfect for this, because there are so many pretty pinks and purples and just things in this set that you don't get with a typical like 3-color set or whatever. And so I thought it would be really fun to paint Melanie. So I did paint her in the whole like K-12 vibes, and I put Kelly at the top, and she's saying, "Put me down, you freak," like in the movie. So now I just want to give you my thoughts on the watercolors themselves. In my opinion, because I'm used to working with such small sets of watercolors, I feel like 60 watercolors is just complete overkill and just so unnecessary, because the thing with watercolors is you mix your own colors with the primary colors. And I feel like this watercolor set is so good for people like crafters, or people that are not super serious about getting into watercolor and learning color theory and all of that. I feel like if you want to just have fun with watercolors and not experience the whole mixing process of everything, then this set will be good for you. But if you want to be serious about watercolor, I would not buy these. So I ended up taking all of these watercolors and putting them into a palette, and I mixed them with honey to make sure that they wouldn't crack, because I had heard that the Arteza watercolors, you pretty much cannot pan them without glycerin or honey. So I put them in this like really cheap pan set that I had, and so far they've been pretty good. They did crack still, even though I added the honey, and some of them fell out, so I had to just kind of work with what I had. So I want to really like these watercolors. I really do, but I don't. I don't like them really at all. They feel very cheap to me. They feel super cheap. So almost like you would buy just like a cheap set from your local Walmart or something like that. They do not feel expensive, and even at that, they barely feel like watercolors, which is just so odd to me. Because they are mixed with white, they are not translucent, and that is the whole thing with watercolors, is the translucency. So whenever I was painting this Melanie Martinez piece, I just felt like I was not getting any watercolor effect on her face at all. And I super hate the way that her hair turned out. Of course, that's my fault for the way that I painted it. But I also did some paintings for Inktober with this paint. And it's fun to mess around with and to sketch with and to do things like Inktober. Things, little fast sketches and stuff like that. But for me to spend a whole bunch of time on a portrait that just did not turn out very well, it's very discouraging. So that's why I feel like these are mainly targeted or meant for crafters. So the other huge thing about these watercolors that I absolutely do not like is they are super chalky. And whenever I say super chalky, I mean it's to the point to where you can rub your finger on a part that you have painted, and the piece can be completely dry, and you will see paint residue on your finger, and the way that just the painting feels to the touch is very, very chalky, and it even has a cast of chalkiness to it. So another thing, because these watercolors are chalky, I take a shot every time I say chalky, the paint transfers from the sketchbook. So let's say that you've made this big painting and you want to use your sketchbook to the full, you know, to its full ability. Well, good luck with that, because the paint will transfer onto the other page almost like you have used charcoal or something, and that is just something that I do not like. To summarize my review, I halfway recommend the sketchbook. I think that it is a decent sketchbook. If you want to try it out, give it a go. You might really enjoy it. I still really enjoy the Canson watercolor paper, or the Canson just mixed media sketchbooks in general. The paintbrushes I would definitely give a try. I think that they're really nice and really good for the price. The watercolors, I would skip. Even if you're a beginner, I would not buy these. They're way too chalky, they're way too pigmented, they're not translucent at all, and there's just way too many colors for you to learn off of that. So yeah, that is pretty much my review for these watercolors, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you've tried any of these products and what you think about them. And yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you all in my next video. Thank you to Arteza for sending me these products to review. I super, super appreciate that. And yeah, I will see you all in my next video. Love you, love you, love you. Bye-bye. Some merch.